I had just stepped off the plane in Houston when my grown son slipped from my side and wrapped himself around a stranger's leg beneath the harsh airport lights. I didn't panic. At 66, you learn to breathe, make eye contact, and move in on the angle that calms a room. I guided him back, then printed our info at the kiosk, and the paper curled out with 3 words that hit harder than any shout: "Mother, not on file." So I did what years of caregiving taught me to do. I opened a folder, started a timeline, and followed the trail no one expected me to see. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're watching from. The air hit me like a damp towel when I stepped off the jet bridge. Texas humidity always remembers you, even if the state forgets your name. My knee gave its usual protest, a quick twist that reminded me I wasn't 30 anymore. Arthur walked ahead, counting steps under his breath. 7, 8, 9, his blue cap bobbing through the crowd. The noise of the terminal pressed in, that layered hum of wheels, voices, and gate announcements that never quite make sense until you're already lost in them. I adjusted my bag and told myself, keep it routine. Restroom, baggage claim, ride share. Routine is safety when the world keeps shifting its furniture. A stroller rolled between us, and for half a second his hand slipped from mine. I reached out, too late. He was still there, just one lane over. His shoulders tense the way they do when his brain starts to measure exits. "You're fine," I said. Though I was talking to myself as much as to him, crowds used to swallow me whole. Now they just bump against my ribs. At baggage claim, the carousel clanked to life. The first bags hit the rubber with a thud, and I turned. He wasn't by my elbow. Arthur. My voice was low, even. People swarmed closer to the belt, phones out, backpacks swinging. Someone laughed. The noise flattened into a blur. My eyes skimmed the glass above the carousel, where reflections moved faster than the crowd itself. Then I saw it, a flash of blue, my son's cap, slipping between 2 families toward the terminal exit. I stepped onto the carousel guard for height, ignoring the protest in my knee. "Arthur!" Not a shout, just one clean call. I've learned not to waste breath on panic. You spend it on angles. The crowd surged, and I saw him again, his small figure colliding softly into the leg of a tall man in a dark suit. The man froze, then steadied himself, one hand on Arthur's shoulder. My pulse ticked hard, but my feet didn't rush. You can't out-sprint misunderstanding. You walk it down carefully. The TSA agent nearby was already watching, ready to decide what kind of story this would be. I came in from the side. Hand open. "Arthur, sweetheart, with me." The man looked up, steady eyes, no alarm. "He's okay," he said quietly. Crowd shifted. He reached out. His voice was even. East Coast, maybe. "Thank you," I replied. "I'm his mother." Arthur clung to my sleeve, breath shallow, head tucked against my arm. The man's tie clip caught the light like a wink from the ceiling fixtures. He nodded once, respectful, almost apologetic. Then he adjusted his briefcase and stepped back into the stream of travelers. We found a bench near a wayfinding kiosk to catch our breath. I pressed the button to print our bag tag and pulled up the airline app to confirm our gate number for the connecting ride. The screen blinked, then loaded our passenger details. Under Arthur's name, emergency contact, mother, not on file. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I tapped refresh, then again. My surname was spelled correctly. My boarding pass still said Helena Dardine, but the emergency contact number listed was one I didn't recognize. I printed the page anyway, curling thermal paper, small red letters staring back at me. Not on file. I folded it twice, slid it into my wallet. Evidence first, reaction later. A TSA agent lingered nearby, polite but curious. Before I could move, the suited man reappeared, pausing just far enough not to intrude. "I'm Callahan Reese," he said, If you need a statement about what happened, I'll answer. He reached for a business card, hesitated halfway, then handed it over. He's a brave kid, he added softly. Brave, I repeated. That's one word for him. He smiled, an understanding kind, and walked toward Gate 22 where his own flight would soon board. The TSA agent followed him with her eyes, then moved on. Arthur was calmer now, watching the baggage conveyor spin. When our suitcase appeared, he pointed to it, relieved. I grabbed the handle, balancing our pace against the tide of travelers. The printed slip in my wallet burned against my side like a warning light. Not on file. Someone had reached into the digital space of our lives and erased my name from my son's record outside. The heavy doors hissed open to the thick Houston air. The rideshare pole flickered with reflected headlights, cars inching forward in stop-and-go rhythm. I guided Arthur's hand to the rail, scanning the crowd, memorizing faces, details, timestamps, habits that come from being doubted one too many times. I texted myself the photo of the kiosk screen, attached time and location. A small act of insurance. You don't argue with systems that pretend you don't exist, you start a file. The driver pulled up, windows down, country music leaking into the wet air. I helped Arthur climb in and glanced once more at the folded printout in my hand. I did not raise a boy to erase me, I whispered, and I did not survive 66 years to be erased. As the car pulled away from Terminal C, the city lights stretched long and thin across the freeway. In my lap, the paper curled in the damp air, red letters sharp against white. Mother. Not on file. I pressed my thumb over the words until the ink smudged slightly. Proof that I was still here. First entry, IH, kiosk print, 4:37 p.m. Mother. Not on file. I wrote the time before the anger. The rideshare hummed through wet Houston streets, wipers dragging a rhythm across the windshield. The driver talked about traffic on the Beltway. I nodded, pretending to listen. Arthur leaned against the window, his blue cap pulled low, phone glowing in his hand. I opened my notes app, labeled a new folder, Arthur, Guardianship Anomalies. Attached the photo of the kiosk, added the timestamp, and typed one line, files remember what people try to forget. By the time we turned off FM 1960, the air smelled of rain and brake dust. My townhouse waited with its familiar squeak at the front gate and a porch light that always buzzed before catching. Arthur carried his duffel straight to the couch, curling under the throw I kept for guests. He looked tired in that quiet way. No meltdown, no words. Just a slow withdrawal into his own breathing pattern. I let him settle while I microwaved leftover soup. Simple, predictable, the routine that anchors him. When his phone chimed, he handed it to me absent-mindedly, asking about his medication reminder. Let's check it, I said, keeping my tone light. Under medical ID, the emergency contact section blinked open. Primary, Seraphine Caldwell. Secondary, unavailable. My number, grayed out. Doctor contact replaced with one from a clinic I didn't recognize. Rena fixed it for travel, Arthur said, half distracted, scrolling through his texts. His trust came too easily. It always had. I asked if I could record our little how-to for his binder, his consent routine. He nodded, pleased to be useful. So I screen recorded each page, the red asterisk of medical ID, the toggled-off switch next to my name. Erasure hides in toggles, not tantrums, I whispered to myself. He finished his soup, then wandered to his room. I sat at the kitchen counter and called the bank's IVR, the one tied to his rent and medication fund. The synthetic voice chirped through options, then said, "Your permissions have expired." My pen froze mid-click. The mailing address listed wasn't mine anymore. It was Seraphine's duplex in the Heights. "A new co-signer is pending approval," the voice added. "I'll need mailed statements to my address," I said evenly. For audit, it confirmed the request, gave me a reference number. I wrote it down, the digits steady and neat. A mother's name can be rubbed off paper, but not off paper trails. The doorbell rang before I could exhale. Seraphine stood there, linen blouse, expensive perfume, smile sharp enough to slice a polite silence. "Just picking Arthur up," she said. "Early work day tomorrow." She held a folder and a phone, both angled like props. After that airport mix-up, I'd rather he rest somewhere stable. I kept my voice calm. "He's resting now. You can check on him." "There were recent incidents," she said softly, eyes flicking toward my hallway camera. "Adult Protective Services has guidelines about post-travel supervision. You understand?" It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it, rehearsed like a line from a script. Arthur hovered behind me, rubbing his wrist, unsure which adult to believe. I didn't block the door, didn't step aside. "If there's a policy or an authority note," I told her, "text it to me, and we'll follow it." She hesitated, then played her card, literally. From the folder, she slid a printout photo, the kiosk screen from the airport. My kiosk screen. "Airport staff escalated," she murmured. "The image was grainy, cropped. It could only exist if someone had been behind me, watching, taking pictures as I took mine." Her folder tab read, "Emergency reassignments." The edges of her voice softened as she added, "You don't have to make this hard, Helena." I met her eyes. "If you're rescuing him, why do you need to erase me first?" Arthur blinked between us, caught in the crossfire of calm tones. I crouched down to meet his eyes. "You have 3 options," I said gently. "Rest here tonight. Rest there with Rena. Or we call Dr. Levan and let him decide." Simple choices, predictable structure, the language his brain trusts. He pointed toward his room. "Here," he whispered. Seraphine's smile cracked just enough to show her teeth. "Then I'll document that you refused coordination," she said, voice sugary but tight. "That's fine," I answered. "Please include that Arthur made his own choice." She left without closing the door all the way. I sent a short text to her number summarizing. Arthur chose to stay. "You're welcome to drop off the pharmacy refill tomorrow at 10 a.m. Read receipt on timestamp saved. People who tell the truth prefer summaries." When the door clicked shut, I turned on the desk lamp and opened my laptop. The light painted everything in the same sterile glow as the airport kiosk. I scanned the thermal printout, the screenshot of his phone, the text thread, the bank's case number. Each file slid into its folder. Helena. Evidence. I watched the green sync icon blink once, then turn solid, outside. Cicadas droned like a steady heartbeat. Inside. Arthur's weighted blanket rustled as he fell asleep. I looked at the cloud icon and whispered, "Anger has no metadata. Evidence does." The sync checkmark pulsed green, a small, stubborn light against the dark window. Link to next chapter. At 8:01 a.m., I called the doctor and an attorney because love needs signatures. At 8:01, I called the doctor and an attorney because love needs signatures. The morning light over my kitchen sink was pale gold, quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the soft scrape of Arthur's spoon in his oatmeal bowl. The cicadas had gone silent after the rain. I laid out his pillbox by weekday, each square filled and closed. "Here's our plan," I said, sliding his coffee toward him. "We'll call Dr. Levin first, then a lawyer. No rush, no panic." He nodded, stirring honey into his cup like he always did when he needed time to process. I kept my tone matter of fact. If we want the truth to stand up, we'll let it stand on paper. The phone speaker filled the kitchen with hold music, the kind meant to sound cheerful but lands just shy of polite. When the receptionist picked up, her voice was brisk, trained. We have you listed as secondary contact, Ms. Dardine. Primary is Seraphine Caldwell. My grip on the mug didn't change, but something in my chest did. Can you confirm when that change occurred? I asked. One moment. Looks like last month. The system notes an update through patient messaging. My proxy access is locked? Yes, pending updated paperwork. Then we'll bring Arthur in today. I said evenly, and I'd like an audit log. Who went what device? There was a pause, the kind that comes when policy collides with common sense. If Mr. Dardine consents in person, we can reauthorize. I can squeeze you in at 11. Perfect, I said. The clinic app on my screen pulsed red, permissions pending. I took a screenshot and added it to the growing folder. When a door says staff only, the hallway camera is where you learn the truth. By 9, Arthur was rinsing his bowl while I dialed the elder law office. The receptionist transferred me to Miriam Coe, whose calm sounded like she'd seen every version of a family falling apart and still believed in paperwork. You did the right thing documenting, she said after I laid out the facts. But you should know. An anonymous APS inquiry came through the clinic overnight. Language reads like caregiver boundary concerns. That's usually code for someone trying to paint you as over-involved. I felt the words hit but not sink. What happens next? Nothing yet. It's a flag, not a finding. I'll draft a preservation and non-interference letter to send to the clinic and your daughter-in-law. Keep everything in one timeline. Texts, screenshots, call logs. Love is not enough in Texas, she said quietly. You'll need the paper that proves the love. I emailed her the files I had, each attachment labeled by timestamp. Arthur watched me work from the kitchen table, tracing his finger along the grain of the wood. We're just organizing, right? He asked. Exactly, I said. Organizing. By 10:30, we were at Dr. Levin's clinic, the lobby full of citrus disinfectant and the hum of self-check-in kiosks. Arthur handled the pen carefully, printing his name in slow, even letters. The RN led us down a side hall where the lights buzzed faintly. Dr. Levin met us halfway, kind eyes behind smudged glasses. Arthur, do you want your mother present while we review your file? Arthur nodded. Yes. That single word opened the gate. They restored my proxy on the spot, printing a new form. Designation of personal representative. Patient decision maker, Arthur Dardine. My name followed in bold, authorized again. The audit log printed next. Black bars, timestamps, device IDs. The change last month came from a login under Seraphine's account, routed through her phone during Arthur's business trip. Looks like remote access, the RN said softly. Dr. Levin's frown deepened when he scrolled further. And this, an APS intake note submitted at 112A, E, originating from an IP in the Heights, anonymous, but coincidental, wouldn't you say? If it happened, I said. It left a shadow. We left with the paperwork in a neat stack, Arthur clutching a lollipop the nurse had offered. Outside, the air was already thick again, sky turning that white-blue before heat settles in for the day. My phone buzzed as we reached the parking lot. An email from Callahan Reese, subject line, IH incident still frame. Attached was a photo, frozen mid-moment. Seraphine at the airport kiosk, angled toward me. Phone lifted. The timestamp matched exactly 4:37 p.m. The image's corner caught a small blue sign above her head, Family Meeting Point. I forwarded the email to Miriam with a single line, Chain of custody, airport. Some people fear cameras. I've learned to thank them. Minutes later, Miriam replied, Preservation letter drafted. Sending copies for your review. Certified mail to Seraphine, clinic, and bank. Keep receipts. I nodded to myself, already picturing the envelopes lined across my kitchen counter. I'd print them, sign them, seal them. Arthur leaned against the car door, chewing his candy, calm again. The world looked ordinary, the bank, the diner, the endless Texas sky. But I knew better. By noon, the letters were sealed, and the doorbell rang like someone already knew. By noon, the letters were sealed, and the doorbell rang like someone already knew. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the door to a uniform and a clipboard. The certified mail carrier held out a green stickered envelope with my name typed in neat block letters. At the same second, my phone vibrated, family group text lighting up like a slot machine. I signed for the envelope, the carrier's pen clicking twice, and the little green sticker flashed against the stack of preservation letters waiting on my console table. I photographed the label, front and back, and forwarded it to Miriam with a one-line note. Received bank notice, timestamp attached. The group text kept chiming. A cousin I rarely heard from typed, "Checking in. Heard Helena is withholding info. Is Arthur okay? He seemed disoriented at the airport." I didn't answer. If they wanted noise, I would answer with paper. I slipped the certified envelope into my shoulder bag, called to Arthur for his cap, and locked the door. The Heights branch still had real pens chained to small silver stands and frosted glass over the offices where decisions get made. The lobby camera domes watched everything with a quiet red blink. I asked for the manager by name from the envelope, Ledger Van Holt. He arrived with a courteous smile that didn't overpromise. I slid my ID across. Arthur did the same. Ledger ran our account and tapped through screens I knew well and screens I did not. "Ms. Dardine," he said, voice steady. "There was an attempted update to trustee and beneficiary settings 2 days ago. It queued a signature change and uploaded a PDF that resembles a power of attorney, but it wasn't recorded here." He angled the monitor so I could see. Pending change, hold, identity mismatch. It originated from a profile associated with the Heights IP. The digital signature failed our biometric check on the e-sign tablet. Someone tried to authorize remotely. Arthur shifted beside me, the brim of his cap low over his eyes. "Leave it as it is," he said, clear and simple. "Mom's here. I'm here. No one else speaks for me." Ledger nodded. "With both of you present, we can freeze all changes and set a no remote auth flag." He printed forms, each line crisp and unambiguous. "Policy, I've learned, is a threat only to the unprepared." We reaffirmed the current ownership. I requested the full audit log, any voice auth recordings, and a copy of the uploaded PDF. Ledger clicked and printed, then added a ticket number for an internal fraud review. I wrote the number on my notepad and read it back to him, slow and exact. While we waited on the print jobs, I sat with Arthur in the upholstered chairs by the teller line. That's when my phone bloomed again. A new text thread, this one looping in Pastor Lydia Kershaw, the woman who had blessed our table at Thanksgiving since Jasper was in preschool. "Friends," the message from Seraphine began. "I'm worried. Yesterday at the airport was confusing. There may be memory issues. I'm suggesting church mediation before legal strangers interfere." Words chosen like soft fabric that still burns when it touches skin. I didn't argue. I forwarded 3 attachments to Pastor Lydia. The clinic form Arthur had signed restoring my proxy, the audit log with its black bars and timestamps, and the airport still frame, Seraphine lifted, photographing my kiosk print at 4:37 p. Below the files, I typed only, "Fax attached. We consented together today. Helena." The read receipts turned blue. A typing bubble flickered, then vanished. Silence, sometimes, is the most honest sentence anyone can send. Ledger waved us back. The complete audit packet slid across his desk in a manila file. "We've activated a rider. No third-party modifications without in-branch verification and 2-factor at this number," he said. tapping my phone. "You'll receive a code if anyone tries." He printed a bank incident form for my signature, then stood to walk us to the door. The door opened from the other side before we got there. Seraphine entered like a breeze that knows the room already. Linen dress, polished smile. "Ledger, wonderful. I'm here to finalize the updates." She produced a printout of the same PDF. Corners creased as if it had traveled around to be shown and admired. Ledger's face went professional flat. "I'm afraid the account is frozen for changes," he said. "We'll review authenticity through internal channels." Her smile thinned. "This is about Arthur's safety," she announced, pitching her voice to the room. A couple by the coin machine looked over. "We've had recent incidents. Confusion. I'd like to ensure funds aren't mishandled." I did not look at the couple. I did not look at Seraphine. I looked at the small clock above Ledger's door and then at Ledger. "I'd like to request preservation of today's lobby security footage," I said, calm as a grocery list. "Account-related interactions, noon to 2. He understood and made a note, initialing the time. Truth keeps better when it's refrigerated. Seraphine switched tactics. "Pastor Lydia is concerned," she said, softer now, as if we were in the same family again. "We can sort this without courts." Her eyes glinted toward my phone, waiting for me to defend myself into self-incrimination. I didn't. Arthur rose, his voice small but steady. "I said what I want," he told Ledger. "I stay with Mom. I keep my account like it is." Ledger escorted us to the front. "You'll receive the audit package by secure email," he said. "The freeze is active." Seraphine stood near the pens on chains, poised for the performance that wanted an audience. We did not give her one. Outside. Heat shimmered above the asphalt. I could feel the sweat start at the back of my neck as we reached the car. In the parking lot, I called Miriam on speaker. I described the audit logs, the failed biometric, the PDF, Seraphine's appearance, and the public angle. Miriam approved the new safeguards and added the branch and manager to our non-interference and preservation letters. "File the incident number with your envelope set," she said. "And don't meet her in the doorway she's building for you. Choose your own doorway." "Understood," I said, eyes on the manila packet. The papers felt heavier than they were. Each page was a brick, each timestamp, mortar. We drove home without stopping. The radio murmured commercials for car washes and allergy meds, ordinary life gliding by while hours rerouted. The certified envelopes rode in the glove box like small gavels, waiting to be struck. Arthur traced the ridges of the dashboard, tapping out a rhythm he uses when he wants to keep time steady. We pulled into the driveway just as the day began to think about evening, light slipping toward gold. I laid the audit packet beside my console table stack, logged the ticket number into my timeline, and set the coffee maker for tomorrow. In the living room, Arthur kicked off his shoes and reached for his weighted blanket, the navy one with anchors. Outside, the first sparks of lightning bugs blinked across the hedges. I stood at the window and breathed, the way you breathe when you know you built your house with screws, not glue. By dusk, the bank was quiet, but my porch light blinked to life over a plain manila envelope. By dusk, the bank was quiet, but my porch light blinked to life over a plain manila envelope. The bulb hummed like a tired bee. No return address, only my name in block letters that tried to look official and didn't quite make it. I brought it inside, laid it on the console table beside the stack of letters I'd already sealed, and listened for Arthur's footsteps in the hall. Nothing yet. Good. I slit the flap with a butter knife. Inside, 3 thin shocks. An APS intake notice referencing an anonymous complaint about elderly confusion and financial manipulation, a small printout with an HPD incident number, and a clerk auto mailer screen capture, language about a request for a temporary guardianship hearing. No date assigned yet, but a 48-hour window pending. It was bureaucracy's way of clearing its throat before it spoke. I photographed everything: front, back, barcodes, postage mark. Each image slid into my evidence album with a soft click. Then I typed a line beneath them: received 6:18 p.m.'s porch. IH day +1. I didn't call Arthur. I called Miriam. She picked up on the second ring. I have an APS notice, an HPD number, and a clerk auto mailer about a temp guardianship attempt, I said. Anonymous complainant? Good, Miriam answered. Meaning good that you called, not good that it exists. Forward it all. I'll draft preservation notices to the APS portal, HPD records, and the district clerk for metadata. Do not engage whoever sent it. We respond in paper and in daylight. If they choose anonymous shadows, I said, sliding the pages back into the envelope. I'll meet them under floodlights. I set the envelope on the kitchen table, spread my legal pad, and drew 3 columns: claim, SINA, evidence, preservation, underclaim. I wrote what they were trying to prove. Under evidence, I stacked what had already refused to move: bank freeze with audit logs, clinic proxy restored with Arthur present, airport still frame with Seraphine's phone aimed at my document. Under preservation, I listed who would be told to hold the tape, the logs, the little digital crumbs people think disappear when they close a browser. I called APS, asked for the intake officer listed. Ms. Garrison, she said, voice careful, as if we were both stepping on a wet floor. She confirmed a complaint filed that afternoon. I was allegedly isolating Arthur, obstructing his access to funds, and confusing officials in public places. I gave her the bank ticket number, the clinic letter signed that morning, the timestamps for each step we'd both consented to. Please note on the record, I said, that Arthur consented to all actions today, and that he will speak with any investigator he chooses, with me present if he wants. Ms. Garrison thanked me, the way people thank you for sounding calm when the form prefers drama, and agreed to log my documents. Next, I called HPD and was routed to Detective Ramon Cantu. He confirmed a non-emergency welfare check requested for Arthur's townhouse tomorrow morning. Online portal submission, he said. No in-person complainant. We can note body cam and CAD log preservation if you're asking. I'm asking, I said, writing his name and badge number on my pad. Please notate that we will meet officers at 9 o'clock. Arthur is with me tonight by his request. I texted Arthur a single line. Administrative calls will come tomorrow, we'll answer together. Sleep at my place tonight. He replied with a thumbs up, and seconds later, the sound of my front door closing softly. He walked to the kitchen, sweat at his temples from the still warm evening. I poured water. We sat. I need your passcode, I said. I want to check your phone settings. If I'm wrong, I'll put it back exactly as it is. He slid the phone across without hesitation. Okay. In settings, under profiles and device management, there was something that didn't belong. An innocuous name with permissions far too broad. Battery usage showed silent pings near the airport and the clinic. Policy listed a remote server, and the install source tied back to an account, alias I recognized as one Seraphine used for online RSVPs. The padlock icon at the top bar winked on and off with geo-fence rules. Erasure hides in toggles. Surveillance hides in app names that sound like calendars. I switched to airplane mode, took screenshots of everything, install date, grants, the policy server, then removed the profile. The tiny padlock disappeared. Arthur watched, brows pinched but shoulders loosening. I thought my maps were glitching, he said. It always knew where I was. It wasn't your maps. I answered. I forwarded the screenshots to Miriam. then exported the logs to my email and our evidence drive. The law doesn't require you to be a technician, only to be a historian with receipts. We need to pick up some of your things before the morning, I told him. Just enough for tonight. We'll do it clean. At his townhouse, I parked under the streetlight and started my phone camera before I opened the door. I filmed the mailbox, no stuffed letters or flyers that could be spun into neglect. I filmed the lock, intact, inside. I kept to the kitchen and bedroom, toiletries, tomorrow's pills, his weighted blanket folded in a tote, on the fridge. I taped a printed note in 18-point font. Arthur is with me tonight by his request. We will meet any officer at 9 Aubrension Quetz, ma'am. Together, beside the entry, I set a visible indoor camera angled toward the door and placed a sticky note under it, date stamped, recording for safety during pending APS HPD visit. People who tell the truth prefer summaries. Outside, a car slowed. The silhouette was familiar. The window stayed up. My phone buzzed. The police will want to know why your mother keeps you. From Seraphine. I did not answer. I forwarded the text to Miriam. Subject line: drive by, 8:02 p.m. Intimidation tone. Arthur tugged his cap lower and looked at me for the next move. We finish and we leave, I said. I faced the camera at the door. Consent recorded, I said aloud, steady. He leaves with me. Back home, the porch light had finally steadied. I scanned the APS notice, the HPD number, the clerk screen capture, and the tracking app screenshots into a single PDF. The cover email read, "Please acknowledge receipt. Preservation requested. Portal metadata. Body cam, CAD log." Miriam replied with a draft motion to quash any ex parte guardianship attempt, plus language to demand the portal's IP, device fingerprint, and submission timestamps. "Sleep if you can," she added. "Paper wins by morning." I set 2 alarms for 7. Arthur spread his blanket on the couch and kicked his shoes off with a relief that made him look younger than 38. I packed a thermos with coffee, 2 cups, and granola bars in a brown bag that once held Sunday cookies for the church nursery years ago. The house breathed. The cicadas wound down. I switched off the porch light, then switched it back on. Floodlights, not shadows. Link to next chapter. At 8:59 a.m., I stood on Arthur's porch with a thermos of coffee when the patrol car rolled to a stop. At 8:59, I stood on Arthur's porch with a thermos of coffee when the patrol car rolled to a stop. The blue lights weren't flashing, just idling in the kind of polite authority that says, "We're here because someone made us be." I recognized the badge numbers before they introduced themselves. Oaf, Alvarez and Offs, Prieto, both calm, both scanning the quiet street lined with oaks and recycling bins. "Good morning," I said. "Non-emergency welfare check requested online yesterday." I held out my folder and thermos together, 2 symbols of civility. The porch camera's red LED blinked above us like a metronome. "Body cams on?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am," Alvarez said. "Would you consent to interior filming? If Arthur does." Arthur stepped out behind me, hair brushed, eyes alert. "I consent," he said. "No coercion here. I stay with my mom by choice." His voice was soft but steady, and I saw the officer's ease just a little. I handed over the packet, bank ticket, clinic letter, tracking app screenshots. Alvarez skimmed, nodded once, and radioed Detective Cantu for confirmation. They aligned on the plan: document, de-escalate, move along. The thermos stayed warm in my palm, its weight reminding me what steadiness feels like when everything else runs hot. That's when the black SUV nosed up to the curb like it had rehearsed the timing. Seraphine stepped out with her hair set and her binder tucked like a Bible. "Officers, thank you for responding," she said sweetly. "I'm very concerned. Arthur's been confused. His mother controls his passwords." Alvarez's camera swiveled to include her. I asked for permission to make a short statement. I am Arthur's mother. We welcome this welfare check. We request that all claims be sworn and placed on record. Prieto looked at Arthur. Sir, do you wish to speak privately? Arthur shook his head. No need. I froze my account because I wanted to audit transactions, and I found something on my phone that shouldn't be there. Seraphine blinked, smiled thinly. He's confused. He means a map issue. But then she said it. You're talking about the airport pings and the clinic one, right? The words hung in the air like a siren only I could hear. Only the tracking log showed those exact coordinates. Body cam caught it, timestamp and all. I texted Miriam, contradiction captured. The porch felt suddenly smaller, sunlight cutting through the oaks in stripes. 2 mirrors, my camera and theirs, refused to flatter. By 9:22, the officers had their report template open. No signs of distress, Alvarez read aloud. Subject-oriented, coherent. No evidence of isolation. Chooses to remain with mother temporarily. A second car pulled up, APS intake. Ms. Garrison. She carried a folder thicker than mine. I handed her my evidence index, page numbers, timestamps, a USB with screenshots. She flipped through, impressed despite herself. We'll schedule a follow-up at your residence Thursday afternoon, she said. Seraphine stepped forward. You'll want to include her temporary guardianship attempt. APS doesn't determine guardianship. Miss Garrison interrupted. We determine safety. Court handles guardianship. Seraphine's smile cracked. The officers signed their log. Radio det. Cantu to confirm body cam preservation. When they left, the air felt both lighter and charged, like the pause after thunder but before the rain decides what to do. Back home, I laid the thermos and folder on the kitchen counter. The clock on the wall ticked toward noon, and right on schedule, the phone rang. Ms. Dardine, probate clerk's office, the voice said. Hearing set for Friday, 9 a.m. Judge L. Hargreaves presiding. You'll receive e-file confirmation shortly. I thanked her. Wrote 48-hour clock begins at the top of my pad. The auto email arrived seconds later. Petitioner of record, Seraphine Caldwell. I forwarded it to Miriam. Her reply came in under 3 minutes. Task list, affidavits, clinician, bank manager, motion to quash ex parte filing, sanctions request for tracking breach, organized by color, gold, for medical, blue, financial, red, high harassment. I looked up at the kitchen clock, heard its tick louder than usual. Every click a countdown to Friday. Before dinner, I signed Miriam's newest document, cease and desist and litigation, hold to Seraphine's counsel, preserve portal IP logs, phone tracking vendor data, SMS records, and bank correspondences. A process server picked it up at 5:30. By 6, delivery receipt came through. Signature captured clean. Arthur sat at the table, tracing a line across the wood grain with his finger. There's something I didn't tell you, he said quietly. Last month, after a fight about bills, I signed a paper she gave me, a temporary delegation for finances. I thought it was just for rent. The words landed like pins on glass. I kept my voice even. Do you have a copy? He shook his head. She said she'd file it for me. Then we'll unfile it. I called Miriam again. If it's defective, no notary, no witness, we void it. If valid, we revoke and notice the bank. Arthur nodded, eyes down. I didn't mean to make it worse. You didn't, I said, drawing a yellow line under the word revocation on my pad. You just told the truth, and that always makes things better, eventually. The highlighter glowed under the kitchen light, a thin stripe of order across a page that used to be blank. By sunset, I had a witness list, a color-coded binder, and a Thursday APS visit that would not find us unprepared. Thursday came with a sky the color of calm water before a storm. I'd been up since dawn, labeling folders and color tabs, gold for medical, blue for financial, red for harassment. The house smelled of chicken soup simmering low on the stove, a habit I learned from my mother. Feed the moment, not the fear. When Miss Garrison from APS knocked at 10:30, everything was in plain sight. Pillbox sorted, fridge stocked, calendar open to this week's appointments. "Morning, Ms. Dardine," she said, clipboard in hand. "We'll just have a walkthrough and a short conversation." "Of course," I answered, motioning her toward the kitchen. "Arthur's in the living room." She looked around, jotting quiet notes. "You cook daily?" "Yes. He helps with cleanup, drives to the clinic with me once a week." Arthur waved from the couch, smiling. "We take turns with the grocery app now," he added. She asked for a private chat. I waited in the hallway, the wall clock ticking loud enough to fill the silence. When she finished, Ms. Garrison's tone stayed professional but not cold. "I'll need copies of those phone tracking screenshots and your cease and desist letter," she said. I handed over a USB and index sheet. She nodded, satisfied, eyes softening for a fraction of a second. "You're organized, Ms. Dardine." "I have to be," I said. "It keeps the truth in order." The scent of soup followed us to the porch, and so did the sound of tires on gravel. A black SUV slowed to a crawl, windows half down. My porch camera caught the license plate before I even looked up. Seraphine leaned out, phone in hand, filming through our windows like she owned daylight. "Ms." Garrison frowned. "Is that her?" "Yes," I said quietly. Within a minute, my phone buzzed, an email from Seraphine to APS, CC'd to half the family. "I fear Helena is isolating Arthur. Here's footage from 11:12 a.m. outside her house." The timestamp matched the plate Ms. Garrison had just jotted. "Ms. Garrison," I said. "You just witnessed the violation." She nodded, typing, "Potential harassment. I'll log and coordinate with HPD." I texted Detective Cantu. "SUV drive-by, 11:12 a.m., captured on both cameras." His reply came back fast. "Log preserved, add to Friday packet." Arthur stepped beside me, voice low but clear. "I don't consent to being filmed at home." "Say it once more, please," I told him. He repeated it for Ms. Garrison's notes. She added his statement to the field form, initialed it, and closed her folder. "We're done here. My report will reflect what I saw. Capacity intact, safe environment, external coercion risk." By afternoon, I was on a Zoom call with Mrs. Halverson, the mobile notary whose seal appeared on the delegation document Seraphine claimed to have. The woman's voice was brisk, no nonsense. "I've been a notary for 32 years, she said, flipping open a thick leather logbook. "I don't see any entry for your son's name or that date." She held the page to the camera. The stamp on the scanned form differed, spacing off, border faint. "That's not my seal, honey. Someone copied it." Miriam joined the call midway, confirming what we both already knew. Without a true notarization or a witness signature consistent with the original clause, the delegation is voidable. If it was obtained under pressure, it's void outright. Miss Halverson smiled gently. "I'll sign a statement of non-participation today and bring it to court tomorrow if needed." Her logbook filled the screen, a quilt of inked squares, years of clean record-keeping, real memory, not the kind someone can rewrite on a form. At 3, Arthur and I drove to the branch records office. The air smelled faintly of printer toner and coffee. Mr. Entered De Soto, the compliance officer, greeted us with 2 folders and a small drive. "I've pulled 60 days of card activity and vestibule footage," he said. On screen, the time-stamped video played. Seraphine at the ATM. Same hour, Arthur's card showed no activity. The transaction logs matched salon charges under her loyalty number. "She said she withdrew for groceries," I murmured. "Merchant codes disagree," he replied, signing the affidavit. "Will provide a custodian of record certification and export for court. Chain of custody sealed." "Could you include device IDs and merchant mapping for comparison?" "Already queued," he said with a small smile. "Sent to counsel within the hour." Relief isn't joy. It's quieter, heavier. I left with the folder pressed close, not from triumph, but from the ache of realizing what my son never saw coming. By dusk, the streetlights blinked on. Mr. Padilla, our neighbor, passed by with his terrier tugging the leash. "Evening, Mr. Dardine," he said, slowing, then awkwardly. "I should probably tell you. I've seen that SUV parked out front at night, engine running, twice a week, maybe more. Phone pointed at your windows." I nodded, gentle. "Would you be willing to write down the dates you remember?" He hesitated, then exhaled. "Yeah. I jot times on my dog walk app. I can print screenshots." "Perfect," I said. "My attorney has a short affidavit form. I'll drop it by." He smiled, half relieved, half embarrassed. "Glad someone's doing something. That lady creeps my dog out." Minutes later, Detective Cantu called. "We'll add patrol passes tonight," he said. "No confrontation if you see her. Cameras and lights only." I thanked him, then read a text from Ms. Garrison. "Preliminary note. Safe home, no isolation found. Full report ready by morning." I looked around my quiet kitchen. Arthur rinsed the soup bowls, the soft clink of dishes, the sound of normalcy trying to return. I opened my binder and aligned the tabs, yellow for the doctor, blue for the bank, red for the harassment. When I closed it, the clock read 9:12 p.m. The 48-hour clock was now a blade, but it was a blade I could point. By midnight, the binder shut with a thud. Evidence in order, witnesses on call, and a courthouse morning that would not be kind to liars. The house was quiet except for the hum of the printer and the small sigh the heater made every few minutes. It was 11:47 p.m., and my desk lamp cast a circle of amber light across the binder I'd built all week. Yellow for medical, blue for financial, red for harassment. I just finished drafting a plain language timeline when my inbox pinged. Subject line, "Let's be reasonable." From Seraphine Caldwell, CC. Her counsel, 2 relatives. The tone looked gentle, but every line carried the same old perfume, control masked as grace. "Our brand needed a push," she wrote. "We only used funds sitting unused under joint access. You weren't even active on that account. I know this has been hard on you, but let's avoid public embarrassment." There it was, admission dressed up as pity. I read it twice, saved the PDF, and forwarded it to Miriam with the subject S24 candidate. Timestamp 11:47 p.m. Then I set my mug down and breathed, slow and steady. This wasn't victory, it was evidence. And evidence didn't gloat, it just stood its ground. At 12:18 a.m., Miriam's reply landed like a small gavel on the screen. Filed at 11:52 e.p.m. Judge signed, emergency preservation order granted. See attached. I opened the PDF. The top line glowed. All digital data, including devices and cloud accounts tied to Seraphine Caldwell. Salon Era LLC and affiliated bookkeeping apps must be preserved pending hearing. Miriam added, "Court runner will serve counsel at 7:30 a.m. No deletions allowed. Sanctions clause active." I printed 2 copies. The machine whirred slow and deliberate, each sheet sliding out with the soft heat of something alive. I slipped one behind the red tab in my binder and one into the glove box of my car. The law was moving in the dark now, but it was moving. By dawn, coffee filled the kitchen, strong and straightforward. I ate a bowl of overnight oats and went through my checklist while the sky softened from gray to rose. At 5:52 m, Ms. Garrison from APS called. Preliminary report complete. No isolation found. I'll have the signed version for court pickup by 8:15. Thank you, I said, writing it down. At 6:10, my inbox blinked again. Mr. DeSoto's bank surveillance export with affidavit attached. 2 minutes later, a text from Mrs. Halverson. Statement of non-participation notarized by colleague, available by Zoom if required. Then, at 6:41, an unknown number. Ms. Dardine, it's Jared Hawksley. His voice was cautious, but kind. I was Arthur's sponsor, remember, from the outreach group. Yes, I said, steadying my breath. I thought you should know, he continued. Arthur hugged me at the airport because he didn't feel safe going home with her. He said you'd understand. Oh, I felt the warmth rise behind my eyes, not from tears, but from recognition. Would you be willing to testify to that? I don't want drama, he said, but I want the truth on record. Then we'll see you at court, I told him, and forwarded his name to Miriam for the witness list. Hope felt like a small, warm coin in my palm, something you don't spend, only hold. By 7:30, the rideshare curved toward the Harris County Civil Courthouse. The air was crisp, the city half awake. People lined up with briefcases, phones, and nervous eyes. Inside, security scanned my bag. The officer raised an eyebrow at the thick binder. Just paper, I said, smiling, and peppermints. Keep the mints, ma'am, he said kindly. Past the metal detectors, marble floors stretched wide and echoing. That's when I saw her, Seraphine, cream blazer, perfect smile, stepping into my path like she was greeting an old friend. Helena, she said softly. You'll look controlling if you push this through. The court hates scenes like this. A nearby security officer shifted closer. I kept my voice even. The record will speak. Her jaw flickered. She stepped back as the officer politely reminded her of the contact boundaries. It was small, almost invisible, but it was the first time she yielded ground without words. By 8:22, I sat in a windowless conference room with Miriam and Arthur. The air smelled of paper and coffee from a too small cup. Miriam had the binder open, yellow tab, blue tab, red tab, and now she slipped the fresh print of Seraphine's midnight email into the front sleeve. We'll lead with this, she said. The judge's clerk entered, crisp and quick. Preservation order is on the docket, she said. Opposing counsel has been served. Any deletions after 7:45 will qualify as sanctions. Miriam nodded. Perfect timing. The clerk scanned our stack, tapped the cover, and smiled faintly. Looks solid. When she left, Miriam looked at me. Remember, short answers, clear facts, let the evidence talk. Always, I said. A knock at the door. Arthur stepped in, tie slightly crooked, eyes rimmed red but clear. He didn't speak at first, just stood there until Miriam gave him a nod. I'll tell the truth, he said. Simple as that. I didn't hug him. Not yet. Some bridges can't hold that kind of weight until the storm passes. I just nodded once. The truth itself was the embrace. The clerk returned. You're up in 5. I closed the binder. The sound it made was clean. Final. A single heavy thud that echoed like a gavel in my hands. When the bailiff called our case, I carried it like a calm weapon and stepped toward the bench. The bailiff's voice echoed through the courtroom. "'Cause number 24-192, Caldwell versus Dardine, temporary guardianship hearing." I rose, binder in hand. The leather cover felt heavier than it had last night, weight not of fear, but of proof. But Miriam stepped beside me, calm as ever, and stated our appearances for the record. The judge, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses perched halfway down her nose, looked over the docket. "This is a limited hearing," she said. "We're addressing immediate safety, finances, and claims of undue influence. Preservation order noted and active. Any spoliation will be treated as contempt." Her voice was measured but not cold, the kind of voice that didn't need to raise itself to command a room. I took a quiet breath and reminded myself, speak only what I can prove, and let the paper breathe for me. Miriam began the direct examination. "Ms. Dardine, can you describe the sequence of events from your son's arrival at the airport to today?" I guided her through the tabs, yellow, blue, red. The pages turned with the same calm rhythm as a metronome. The airport, the kiosk photo, the clinic audit, the salon withdrawals, the door code changes. Each one a line drawn in ink, not emotion. Miriam placed a printed exhibit before the judge. Exhibit 7, email sent by petitioner Caldwell at 11:47 p.m. last night. The line was highlighted in yellow. Our brand needed a push. We invested from the joint access you wouldn't use. The judge read it twice, lips pressing together. "Received directly by respondent?" "Yes, Your Honor," Miriam said. "Timestamp confirmed? Server log included." When Miriam asked about the airport search, I spoke quietly. "I didn't chase. I located. There's a difference." The judge nodded once. "There is." The silence that followed felt cleaner than any applause could have. Next came Ms. Garrison from APS. Her testimony was crisp, free of performance. "No signs of isolation," she said. "Environment stable." The subject, Arthur Dardine, expressed concern about external pressure to limit contact with his mother. Opposing counsel leaned forward. "Would you agree that Miss Dardine exercises strong influence?" Miss Garrison didn't blink. "Influence is not control. Control is deprivation. We found none." The judge admitted the APS report for temporary purposes. The air shifted, small but real. Then came the notary, Mrs. Halverson, on Zoom. Her square face appeared on the courtroom monitor, hair pinned neatly back. "I did not notarize any durable power or delegation for Arthur Dardine on that date," she said, opening her logbook to the page. "My entry shows a pediatric consent that morning. The signature you've shown me is not mine." She raised the statement she'd notarized the night before, non-participation declaration stamped and sealed. "Understood," the judge said. "Order will reflect, clerk, note forensic copy of alleged document origin under Preservation Order 25. Seraphine's attorney objected, Foundation, Your Honor." "Overruled," the judge said, not even glancing up. "If forgery is proven, sanctions will be addressed at full hearing." Mr. DeSoto from the bank followed. He wore a gray suit and the patience of someone used to numbers, not drama. "Transaction audit shows card activity at 2:17 p.m., he said, displaying a still frame from the bank's vestibule camera. "This is Ms. Caldwell using the joint account card at a salon-adjacent ATM. Merchant codes confirm withdrawals were for boutique purchases, not household expenses." He handed the affidavit across. "I am the custodian of these records." The footage and logs were preserved under subpoena request filed Wednesday. Opposing counsel objected again, irrelevant to capacity. But the judge shook her head. Relevant to financial influence, overruled. I didn't have to look at Seraphine to know she was shrinking. The truth was loud enough without me watching her fall under it. Then Jared took the stand. He didn't wear a suit, just a clean button-up and honest eyes. "Arthur came to see me at the airport," he said. "He hugged me and said he didn't feel safe going home with Seraphine. He said he just wanted peace." "Did he mention his mother?" Miriam asked. "He said she'd understand." He paused, looking at Arthur. And she did. I didn't turn toward my son. I kept my hands flat on the table, binder closed. Discipline first, reunion later. The judge leaned back, steepling her fingers. "I've heard enough." The courtroom went still. "Temporary protective orders will issue as follows," she said, her tone formal but not harsh. "Petitioner Caldwell is barred from accessing respondents' financial accounts pending review. Joint funds will be moved to a court-controlled escrow. Devices and cloud accounts tied to petitioner's salon business and household finances will undergo forensic imaging under Preservation Order 25. Supervised exchanges for medical appointments are permitted. No unilateral restrictions of contact." She glanced at the highlighted email. "This document suggests an inadvertent admission. Counsel, remind your client that midnight correspondence is not privileged." Miriam almost smiled. Almost. "Full evidentiary hearing in 10 days, the judge concluded. "In the meantime, both parties are to avoid communication outside counsel. Court is adjourned." The gavel struck once, quiet but final. In the hallway, the echo of it still followed us. Seraphine caught up, voice low but edged. "You're destroying the brand," she hissed. I stopped, turned slightly. "Tell the truth," I said. "The brand survives." Arthur lingered by the elevator. "Mom," he said, voice soft. "Coffee after?" "When the orders are filed," I replied. Miriam placed a steady hand on my elbow. "You held the line," she whispered. I nodded. The next war was numbers, not noise. By lunchtime, the orders were stamped, and a new message lit my phone. A private settlement offer with a price I could never accept. On the courthouse steps, sun bouncing off glass, my phone lit up like it had been waiting for the gavel. A text from a number I didn't save. "Private settlement if we keep family matters off the record." A PDF followed, glossy and polite, called Mutual Peace Agreement. Numbers I could retire on, timelines that ended before next week, clauses that smelled like bleach. I felt the old reflex to end conflict, the one mothers learn when dinner needs to be peaceful no matter what. Then I remembered the orders we'd just won. Peace without truth is only quiet. Miriam and I ducked into a coffee shop that knows every lawyer within 6 blocks. We took a corner table by the window. She slid her readers on and started skimming with the same focus she brings to the lectern. "Permanent gag," she said. No admission from them. A mutual misunderstanding paragraph. Broad release and a clawback if you disparage the brand in any medium, including private channels. She tapped a sentence with her nail. "Here's where they turn withdrawals into accounting variances. That's a euphemism. Helena. Silence is the product they're buying." I scrolled to the signature page. It offered me the relief every tired woman is promised if she'll stop asking questions. Even the font tried to soothe me. I sipped coffee, let the sugar land, and opened the file info. "Metadata?" I asked. Miriam was already there. She read it twice. "Created last Friday," she said. "A week before today's hearing. Author tag belongs to their operations lead." She flipped a page. "And here, orders anticipated. This tracks the exact shape of what the judge issued hours ago." She looked up. This wasn't a reaction, it was a plan B. Maybe even plan A. Across the room, a couple argued softly about vacation days. It sounded almost sweet compared to the cordial threat on my screen. Miriam called a colleague who knows carriers. Media liability, she said, covering the phone. If they buy your silence to bury misuse, the insurer may want a say. And if this edges into whistleblower territory, their coverage could light up like a dashboard. She listened, nodding. Yes, I've got the preservation order. She hung up and wrote 2 words on a napkin. Notify carrier. If we push this button, they can't treat your voice like a line item. A memory nudged me. A voicemail Arthur had left 2 nights ago. I'd saved it because it hurt. Now it sounded like a map. I pressed play, volume low. His voice was careful, the way people speak in hallways. Mom, Rena says we need it clean before inventory. She wants me to take a week so nobody digs into vendor credits. Can you just give us that week? There was breath, then a smaller voice. I don't want to fight. I stared at the foam lid until the heat found my fingers. It wasn't a confession, not in the courtroom sense, but it pointed to a motive. Tidy the books, hurry the silence, make the questions stop. I'm forwarding this to you, I told Miriam. Preserve the audio and the carrier log. Back at her office, we spread documents like tiles. I opened my spreadsheet, the quiet one I kept for the little transfers I'd made over the last year. 50 here, 200 there. Bridge money, Seraphine had called it. The amounts were small enough to feel like kindness, large enough to hide their pattern. When we cross-matched dates, they lined up with salon vendor spikes and the exact days she'd texted me about temporary bottlenecks. My kindness had worn a trench where her spending could hide. That realization didn't make me bitter. It made me precise. Miriam capped her pen. So here's the play, she said. We offer terms they won't like and that a court will respect. She drafted while I watched. All misdirected funds back to escrow, a written acknowledgement of misuse. Narrow and factual, to give customers stable ground, no gag, an agreement to cooperate with any audit. If they refuse, she added, we notify the insurer and the board that an attempted hush NDA exists. With backdated metadata, we don't threaten, we inform. She printed our 2-page response and slid it to me. Pressure, she said, not noise. I read it twice and signed the bottom. The sound of my pen on paper felt more final than the gavel had. I thought of every meal I'd paid for without making a speech. Every Saturday I'd painted a room because my child wanted a fresh start. Love does that. But love that keeps quiet when truth needs speaking turns into something else. I won't call it weakness. Women my age have names for things younger people haven't invented yet. I'll just call it a line I won't cross. On the way out, my phone buzzed. Arthur. I heard your message, I said before he could speak. I'm choosing daylight. Come with me or not. That choice is still yours. There was a silence so wide I could hear the building's air vents. I don't want to lose everything, he said. You won't, I answered. You'll lose anything that wasn't yours. We sent the counter. Miriam's paralegal filed a courtesy copy with the clerk and queued an email to the insurer's general address with a polite header. Notice of potential exposure. Preservation order attached. There was nothing dramatic about it. No slammed doors, just the sound of paper moving in the direction of truth. We walked the block to clear our heads. Downtown was all light and buses and a saxophone somewhere you couldn't quite locate. The courthouse stood behind us, ordinary and stern, like every school that ever told me to be quiet. I thought of my mother, who grew up on rules and learned late that rules are at their best when they protect the tender, not the loud. I'm not loud, but I am done being tender in the wrong places. Back upstairs. Miriam's assistant knocked with a printout of their PDF's metadata and our voicemail transcript. "Courier can deliver within the hour," she said. Miriam nodded, already typing a cover letter that used no adjectives it couldn't prove. When she finished, she looked at me differently, not like a client, but like a woman who chose not to kneel. "They'll try once more," she said. "Bigger money, more sugar in the tea, and a meaner threat under the cup." I gathered my binder, the red tab for harassment, the blue for money, the yellow for medicine. The colors felt less like battles and more like rooms in a house I knew by heart. On the sidewalk. Traffic sighed and the heat rose off the concrete. I stood under the kind of sky only Houston makes, bright and heavy. There's a point in a storm where you stop tracking the lightning and start counting your steps to shelter. I wasn't running anymore. I was walking, straight, careful, and not alone. By dusk, their reply arrived. No admissions, bigger money, and a threat to paint me as unstable if I didn't sign. By dusk, their reply arrived. No admissions, bigger money, and a warning I'd be painted as unstable if I refused. 20 minutes later, a courtesy update hit my inbox, and the church list serve at once. The subject line wore concern like Sunday clothes, supporting families through difficult seasons. Inside, I was a paragraph of declining health, financial confusion, and strained boundaries, followed by a plea to give Arthur space. It was written to make decent people put their hands on my shoulders and gently move me out of the frame. The timer had started. A courier rang my bell as I finished reading. On my porch, a seal-stamped packet, hand-delivered like something noble. Inside were screenshots of select bank lines, no context, just numbers circled in red, and a typed concern statement attributed to Arthur. It didn't accuse, it implied. The language was legal adjacent, a careful fog meant to make neighbors nod. The packet was addressed to the church office, the PTA chair, 2 salon clients, and me. Paper bullets, small, fast, meant to sting on contact and bruise by morning. Tucked near the back was a photo of me in the salon's stockroom, handing cash to Arthur. The caption called it "Irregular withdrawals observed in back room." I remembered the night exactly. The supplier who only took cash, Arthur frozen by the confrontation, my hand on the envelope because we needed the dye before a Saturday wedding run. Context, trimmed off like a ragged edge. The photo was a truth with the corners cut away. I set the packet on my kitchen table and put on water for tea. 10 minutes later, 2 Child Protective Services workers walked up my path, clipboard steady. The tip was vague. Elder neglect. Possible confusion. I held the door open and let the porch camera blink at their badges. "You're welcome to sit," I said. I offered IDs, medical clearance from this week, the temporary court order, and a short summary of today's hearing. They were polite and thorough, checked the medicines, checked me, and left with nothing to hold. As the door closed, I felt the old ache in my knee and the newer ache where my patience lives. But neither ached enough to make me small. I drove the packet to Miriam's office. She read the concern statement first, lips in a line. "Headers," she said, and forwarded the email to a forensics address. The reply came quick. The original author field belonged to Seraphine's business account. Arthur's name appeared only as the forwarder. The ghost hand was visible in the pixels. We printed the header chain and clipped it to the front. S36, Miriam wrote in the corner, neat and small. Authorship provenance. Next, she scanned the smear list for insurer exposure and sent a measured notice. An ongoing preservation order exists. A public smear may be suppressing evidence of vendor credit fraud. Within the hour, the carrier replied with a litigation hold, instructing the brand to preserve devices, shared drives, and cloud data tied to finances and media. Someone on their side had just lost sleep. S35, Miriam said, sliding the email into the red tab. When insurers blink, managers blink next. We moved to build the counter-narrative. Not with adjectives, but with spine. Exhibit A, the smear packet, unaltered. Exhibit B, the full photo context, supplier receipt, inventory log, bank withdrawal slip with merchant note. Exhibit C, Arthur's voicemail from 2 nights ago asking me to give them a week so no one digs into vendor credits. Exhibit D, the email header analysis tying the concern statement to Seraphine's account. We stacked them in that order so the arc would read itself. A threat, a half-truth, the motive, the ghost hand. Retaliation against a reporting party. Miriam said, not a confused mother. Say it plain. On cue, my phone buzzed. Arthur. I stepped into the hall and answered. His voice was tight with the hope of a shortcut. Just sign and this ends, he said. I leaned against the cool wall and looked at the exit sign glowing down the corridor. If you wanted peace, I said, you wouldn't have mailed lies to the church. He started to say he hadn't, then stopped. The silence after that was longer than any argument. You can still choose daylight, I said. It's not easy, but it's clean. He breathed, then hung up without a word. I let the dial tone run a second, a moment of honesty we don't grant each other in person. Back in the conference room, Miriam added the carrier's hold letter and drafted a short motion, request for a public correction, limited to the lists they used, and a contempt warning tied to the temporary orders. She kept it narrow, not dramatic. Correct the false impressions sent to named recipients. Refrain from future extrajudicial statements designed to influence witnesses or intimidate me. Preserve all smear-related drafts and distribution logs. We'll walk this to the clerk in the morning, she said. If they want to run a narrative, they can read it into a microphone under oath. My phone pinged again, this time from a neighbor. Mr. Padilla, the one who walks his dog at precise hours. He'd sent doorbell footage, Seraphine's assistant hustling up porches with manila envelopes at 4:21 p.m. Timestamps beating the community update blast by 20 minutes. Chain of custody. Hand to camera to inbox. Forwarded, I texted Miriam, adding only, sequence established. The smear had arranged itself into evidence. At home. I called Pastor Lydia and asked for 5 minutes on her voicemail. I spoke without heat. Pastor, an update went out. I'm the mother in it. Here are 4 facts. The court issued temporary orders in my favor this morning. APS found no isolation at my home. The bank provided footage matching salon withdrawals. And the concern statement was authored on Seraphine's account. Forwarded by Arthur. I am not asking for a pulpit. Only that you note a correction if congregants ask you what's true. I sent the 4 exhibits to the church office with a quiet subject. Request for factual clarification. No announcement needed. People in churches do not need more drama. They need accuracy. At 9. I heard a car idle on the street and waited. It rolled on. I went out to the mailbox, more ritual than task, and felt the heavy heat settle on my shoulders like a shawl from a friend who doesn't know you're already warm. I looked at my little brick house, the one Arthur helped me repaint last spring, the one with the crepe myrtle that refuses to die, and thought about how families keep trying to varnish pain into history. This week, we'd stopped varnishing. Before bed, I wrote 3 lines in the file that started at the airport. Smear distributed, recipients identified, CPS check, no action, insurer hold, active. Then I added 1 more line I needed to see with my own eyes. My name is not on trial. My choices are. I shut the binder and set it upright on the desk so the tabs looked like flags. I slept in the plane, undramatic way you sleep when you've done what you can and tomorrow has a list with check boxes. At 6:40 a.m., the cicadas pulsed and the coffee machine ticked to life. I wore the same jacket I wore to the first hearing and packed the same pens. On my phone, a new email from the insurer asked for a copy of the backdated NDA's metadata and distribution list. I forwarded both without comment. By morning, we were on the courthouse steps again, this time to ask the judge for a public correction and a contempt warning. The courthouse steps felt different in morning light, less like battle lines, more like a crosswalk. Miriam carried the binder. I carried nothing but breath. We filed a motion for a public correction and contempt warning, attaching the smear packet, the doorbell footage, and the email headers that proved authorship. I spoke once. Steady, Your Honor. This isn't vengeance. It's boundaries under law. The judge nodded and set a same-day hearing. The waiting benches no longer felt cold. Inside, sunlight cut through the courtroom blinds. The judge flipped through exhibits, her expression unmoved by performance. "Miss Caldwell," she said to Seraphine, "your communications created public confusion during active orders." The gavel landed once, clean, not cruel. S37. A formal correction notice would be sent to every address that received the smear. Any repeat concern campaign, she warned, would trigger contempt. She sealed my medical info and reaffirmed the court-controlled accounts. Relief, in legal terms. Sounds like paperwork, but it breathes like air. By mid-morning, the forensic accountant took the stand, carrier-approved, methodical. He laid out a diagram of transactions like veins on an X-ray. Salon vendor credits rerouted into a shell company Seraphine managed under her maiden name. S39. The motive behind the NDA, clear as print, hush the trail, not help the brand. Every arrow curved back to the same ledger. Fraud by diversion, he called it. Numbers don't flinch. The court extended the litigation hold across all related accounts, locking the doors she'd once walked through freely. Then came S40, Arthur's email headers and voicemail. Miriam cued the clip. His voice filled the courtroom. "She wants me to get Mother to sign. Just tell her it'll be easier if she stops." The judge turned toward him, voice calm but slicing. "Mr. Dardine, this is not filial duty. It is procedural abuse. Your honesty now determines your credibility later." Arthur nodded, jaw trembling. There are moments when a mother stops rescuing and starts witnessing. This was one. Before lunch, the insurer's counsel appeared on Zoom, suit crisp against a blank wall. "On review," he said, "coverage for Ms. Caldwell's PR actions is denied under the intentional act exclusion. The company will fund neutral forensic work, but not any defense of defamatory conduct." S38. Coverage vanished on contact. You could feel the corporate temperature drop. Partners who once CC'd her fell silent. Reputation insurance doesn't cover willful fire. By afternoon, the correction notices went live. S42. Dry exacting. Blessedly boring. Prior statements lacked context. The court has prohibited further extrajudicial communication, implying incapacity or misconduct by Ms. Dardine. The church bulletin printed it between potluck reminders and choir sign-up. The PTA email followed. The salon posted a copy by the appointment desk. I stood outside as clients paused to read. No one said my name aloud. That was its own grace. Air was coming back into the room. At 3, Miriam and I signed the new trust structure. S41, independent fiduciary, 2-vote rule for loans, auto audits every quarter. Arthur could still earn through the brand, but not touch the levers. "Boundaries are bridges if he chooses to cross," Miriam said. I nodded. Boundaries, not walls. That's the difference between punishment and peace. Later. I met Arthur in a neutral office. quiet enough to hear the HVAC hum. I handed him the photo I'd kept in my wallet since he was 6, missing front tooth, arm around a dog we buried 15 years ago. "I won't lie for you," I said, "but I won't stop hoping you'd tell the truth." He didn't answer, just turned the photo over like he was checking for proof. Maybe that was his way of listening. Evening slipped over Houston in slow amber. The church deacon stopped me in the courtyard, soft-voiced. "Thank you for clarifying without spectacle," she said. I smiled. That was all the applause I needed. At the salon, the staff signed the new compliance policy, initials looping like a quiet amen. One client squeezed my hand as she left. No words, just the weight of solidarity. Logan texted from home, "Grill's hot if you and Miles want dinner." I replied with a thumbs up and a sigh I hadn't earned until now. On my porch, Miles dozed against my shoulder while Logan tightened a hinge on the screen door. Crickets started their shift. The house smelled like cedar and something earned. I opened my ledger, the same one that tracked every withdrawal and receipt through this storm, and wrote a single line: not revenge, structure. Tomorrow, discovery continues. Tonight, my house remembers my name. Some endings aren't triumphs, they're structure. I learned that love without boundaries turns into leverage, and silence buys lies. Keep records, ask for policies, and choose daylight over drama. If someone tries to erase your name, let the paper speak and let your dignity do the talking. Your turn. Where have you mistaken peace for quiet? What boundary would protect, not punish, your family? If this story reached you, drop a 1 or share where you're watching from. If it didn't, tell me why. I'm listening. For more grounded human stories like this, please subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.